What's up, boys and girls? So we are here on another late night. Me and Mel getting a little one-on-one DM to player. Um, hmm. Let's see. I did have
Hello.
questions last time that I ended up asking Adrian that I think you did answer.
I love talking about myself, so I
Oh,
I will answer
the
them.
narcissism. I love it.
I just want to point out Beto called himself a narcissist earlier, so it's not just me.
I'm absolutely a narcissist. I'm only talking about me. I wasn't talking about you just now. Alright, so starting off, if you could have any item like in the campaign
Oh,
transferred
I
to
did
your
think about
character
this.
or into real life, which one would
Yeah.
it be and why?
Well,
And you can't just say because it's fucking cool.
no, I feel like because it's cool is already implied.
Yeah.
Um, I think I answered this. You asked this last time I joined in the other one, and then I sent the answer after the fact because I got interrupted. But basically my answer was like the little telescope. Jude has a telescope that she can use to look through it, and it's sort of like having spirit sight on, except not needing to have it on. Um, I don't really use it that often because I think it's cooler and more story oriented to actually just use my spirit sight. But I would say the little telescope because I feel like it's convenient. And
It is.
also, I'm a little biased because I came up with the idea for it.
You
So
did.
the context for that is I saw a little kaleidoscope telescope thing. It was like a little, it was tiny. It was like a like that. It was like um metal. Shut up. It was like a little metal thing. It had cool like melted vines and like it was just cool. It was cool. And I saw it at a store in a town that's like adjacent to my college town, our college town. Um, and yeah, and I saw it and I picked it up and I looked at it and I was like, this is cool. And then I was looking at it for like a little bit longer and the idea was like, whoa, that would be cool. Because I don't know if we hadn't started fleeing
True.
sparrows yet, I don't think.
No, because while we were in school, we didn't do fleeing
Yeah.
sparrows. We did a one
Um,
shot about it with like me and a
I
few
didn't do
other
a one
people. Well,
shot about
you
it.
you should have or you would have.
I would have? What do you
It was
mean?
supposed to be like a few one shots, and I ended up scrapping it right after the first time playing through it because I was like, I don't like this. I'm not having fun. I'm a selfish DM. I will say that if I'm not vibing with
Who did you
something,
play that with?
Flynn, Carolyn, Charlie, Brandon, and uh, Clint. I think Clint
Hmm,
was there,
okay.
but it wasn't them. It was more so the world wasn't like developed enough yet. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, the plot points are just not it right now. This is not
Yeah.
fun. Because
Yeah.
I was planning for it to be a 3 shot or like a 2 shot, and I was like, I can't. A, I'm not going to be able to fit every plot point I want to in here in a 2 shot.
Hmm.
And B, it's not fully fleshed out enough. So they wouldn't want to run a campaign of it just yet. And I
Mm.
wouldn't either because I didn't have anything figured out. I was just
And
testing a
thus
system.
and thus fleeing sparrows was born.
Exactly.
That's not true.
Fleeing Sparrows has been a long idea down the pipeline, I will say.
Right. That's what I meant. Like, it's
Oh,
not like
yeah.
that was what, yeah.
See, originally, I was gonna run Fleeing Sparrows after I finished the campaign we were gonna do. The, like, second part of To Kill a Fae.
Yeah.
I was gonna run that as an actual campaign. But then I was like, I feel like this is a very serious vibe for people who just want to have fun. And, like, in my
To
opinion,
kill a fae?
I think there are two different, like, types of games. There's a game where you want to just fuck around, sandbox it, and just make constant jokes. And then there's a game where there's a very serious tone while you will have moments of levity, it is mostly serious. And I'm not saying you have one end or another, but I feel like on the spectrum, Fleeing Sparrows falls very much more in the latter, latter category of a very serious type campaign with a lot of like
Yeah.
deeper meaning. And To Kill a Fae was very like fuck around and find out type thing. You know, it wasn't
Yeah. Yeah.
unserious, but it wasn't easy.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Um, but yeah, no, that would be my answer for that. Would just be like cool telescope. I think the original idea was that like it had like two or three charges of like true sight or like some sight spell. Not maybe detect magic, like something like that, where
Yeah,
you could like it would allow you to like perceive something. Um,
that brings us to a
but it
nice
ended
segue.
up, yeah. What is that segue?
As a player, are there any spells that you think should either operate differently or should be operating in a certain way that would be more interesting? I have a few that I could name off the top of my head, but I want to hear
Ooh,
from your perspective since you're actually a caster focused person.
yeah. Hmm. That's a good question. Well, the first thing that comes to mind only comes to mind because I like saw something on TikTok that was like an edit, not really an edit, like a thing about like how this spell could work. If you wanted to homebrew it this way to make it work better. I think it was like Blade. Oh, what is it?
Blade Ward?
Yes. Um, because Blade Ward like is an action, and you have to like it just doesn't really make sense for it
No.
to be an action. Like it's like and then it affects like which attack you have advantage on, whatever. Um, I think Blade Ward is kind of stupid because I always want to have it. Because I think like the in-game idea of it, because it's like you trace a sigil in the air and it could be like, this cool moment, but it's like you don't really want to waste a turn in combat just to do that. And that is since I'm playing mostly casters. Um, I'm not used to it. Like rogues and monks will have, like you get like multiple things to do per turn. Um, whereas casters usually it's just like maybe a bonus action spell and then maybe a cantrip, obviously, because you can't um do two level spells. So
Right.
I'm before I started playing Jude, I was not used to having not multiple actions, but like multiple things to do during a turn. Do you know what I mean?
That
Like
actually
with
makes a lot of
monks,
sense, yeah.
like multiple attacks. So I don't know if you remember, but like at the beginning of Fleeing Sparrows, I don't remember when I said it. There was one moment where I remember having like a fun where I was like, oh, this is so fun. I can do so many things because I'm like not used to that when I play a caster. Um, so like things like that, any spell where like it should be a bonus action instead of an action, like stuff like that. What was the second part of that question? I feel like I need a better answer than Blade Ward.
No, that was actually a very good answer. You
But
know?
what was the second part?
Well, I was just wondering, like, why would it operate differently, like flavor wise or like physically, like how the spell
Mm,
is written? Because, like, I have a few that I can name off the top of my head. One that comes to mind is See Invisibility. Okay? I don't like the way that spell is. You should be able to just regularly get the guy who's invisible, you know? The way it's written is just wonked, personally.
yeah, I can see that.
You know, I Dancing Lights actually is also another one. So I know it says like 4 orbs of light. I think it should be more of a firefly effect, you know, like little tiny lights.
Well, I wonder if it would just make sense if that was just a separate spell. Like you
That's
could
true
just
too.
have a spell that created little fireflies and stuff.
That's true too. You could
But
definitely do
also
that.
I find that unless a player is like specifically, I know that like unless player is specifically being like, and this is what I'm doing with each of the 4 orbs, you can kind of like flavor it to be more of like
Right.
because usually people aren't using dancing lights to use the orb specifically.
Yeah.
It's more of just like a let me light up the area. So I feel like if a player's character has a like flavoring
Right.
thing where it would make sense to do fireflies, I think it would be nice. But
Which
I
is
find
the
that
other
like,
thing about it. You can just reflavor any spell, but mechanically, certain
yeah,
spells are just daft, if that's a good word for it. Just,
I don't know. I can't really think of any
I
that
don't
I
like detect
find.
magic, actually.
Why?
As a DM and a guy who is exclusively like a martially thinking character, when I have magical effects or spells active, I don't look at the school of magic. And everybody's like, what school of magic is it? Come on, DM. And I'm like, I don't fucking know. It's a fucking abjuration. I'm like sitting there like, where? So that's why I loved running the Feywild campaign. Because I got to make these alterations and they made sense in lore, in world,
Mm-hmm.
because you're in the Feywild. Fairy fire does not behave the same way as it does in the other world. Same with
Mm-hmm.
certain banishment spells, you know? You try to banish a Fey in the Feywild, he's gonna just
It's
teleport
like,
10 feet behind you and just pop back into existence. Which is
yeah,
something
yeah.
that I think Charlie found out very early on in the campaign, which
Mm-hmm.
was definitely a oh fuck moment. And I even warned
Mm-hmm.
him. I was like, you're a caster, right? Certain spells will be changed. You're gonna have to experiment. And he was like, all right. And then he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Certain things were just very quick. But
Mm-hmm.
with Detect Magic, the way I like to do it is the way that I've had your spirit sight kind of work, if that makes sense. Like, you get a
Yeah.
general aura, you can't detect the exact thing being used, but you can get a vibe where it's coming from and where it's concentrated in.
Yeah. I mean, I think with that is like usually people who are using detect magics, you have to thing is you gotta have to be sort of a mechanics oriented player, I find, to play a wizard. And I
Mm,
find that usually it's wizards playing those. Um, and if you are a mechanics oriented player, I think sometimes you gotta be able to trust that like certain information doesn't really matter
mm,
in that case. Like in your case, obviously it doesn't really matter what school it is because that's not really going to tell you. You're not paying attention to that.
no,
It's not a conscious choice. So any information you get from what school it is not really going to make a difference.
no.
Um, so like things like that, it's like you got to trust that it's like, hey, you're casting a spell, detect magic. I know what your intention is to find information. You have to trust that the information I'm giving you is going to be helpful to you.
Right. See,
You
the other
know?
thing I do is if you cast Detect Magic at higher levels, because I know there's no like, oh, it's a higher level, technically. If you cast it at
I
higher
don't think
levels,
there's
you
a
can
higher
kind
level
of
casting for.
figure. That's exactly what I'm saying. There's no higher level
Yeah.
casting for it. So
Oh,
if you
I understand.
upcast
I understand.
Detect Magic, you get more information. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's useless. But let's say you don't quite trust the creature that is casting a spell. You can use Detect Magic, hop it up a level or two, and then you can get what type of creature it is. So
Yeah.
there's stuff like that where it's like, okay, this is humanoid. Okay, this is a fae, a dragon, so on and so forth. Because
Hmm.
you're using more of your ability in magic, and for that sacrifice, you get more information. I feel like
Uh-huh.
making homebrew ways to kind of upcast spells that aren't upcastable really gives the players a bit of a payoff, especially when you're playing a character that automatically upcasts their spells like a warlock.
Hmm.
So it's not just, oh, well, I just wasted my 5th level spell slot on Detect Magic for the
It's
3rd
like
time
no,
today. It's like,
you wanna raise the stakes of the game in like more than one way, and one of those being like making higher level spells kind of actually make an impact, like mean something to do that. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I saw something recently on TikTok. I wish I could remember who posted it. But it was a DM who has like this sort of really interesting way of character creation, which was like
I sent
when you're
that to
picking
you.
your character. You
Yes,
did you?
I did. Where you're picking your character, you pick what what was it? Their
Oh, yeah, it's like
flavor,
the
the
class,
class, the the spell
like
list
the
you can
spell
use,
list.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the
yeah. I
ability
forgot that you
score
sent
you
that to me.
use. And I
I forgot that you
liked
sent that
that.
to me.
And I like that for my
Yeah, I did
casters.
too. Well, because my God, the words are not coming out of my mouth today. Um, the example that the guy gave was like a like sort of druidy flavored warlock, which I think is really fun. I am a sucker for warlocks that are flavored cool ways, as you can tell by like the newer character that I'm gonna be playing. Um, but also my character Vera. Um, hold on, wait, I have a prop for this.
Oh, that's wonderful. While she's
Hold on.
gone, I do
No,
also like
I'm
this.
literally right
Oh,
back.
she's right back. Oh, that's so cute.
It's a little mini.
Where'd you get that?
My the DM for that Brit has a or had a 3D printer, and so they printed us little minis, and we had a whole day of it. Our friend Sadie came.
That's so sweet.
Sadie's from New York, and so when we were all playing in person, not your area. Well,
I was gonna say other New
yeah, not near
Yorkers.
you,
You know other New
not near you.
Yorkers that aren't me and
Whoa,
Adrian.
millions of people.
Oh my god.
I know a lot of New Yorkers. I have a lot of family from New York. I don't know why that's. There's a lot of Armenians in Albany. But
It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. I'm sorry.
shut up. Um,
Armenians
but
in Albany. There will be so many.
shut up. But Sadie was playing with us through like Zoom, Discord, whatever, like online. Um, and so when they came to visit, it was really fun. We got to play. I think we did like 2 sessions of that campaign in person because we wanted to kind of like make up for the time. But also one of those nights we spent painting the minis that Britt had painted for us, which was really fun. So now I have a little mini for Vera. But Vera is a warlock, is like the first warlock that I ever played, and like I love Eldritch Blast because I love that you can like flavor it into anything. Like I still haven't quite decided what I want to do for Brigid's Eldritch Blast, but Vera's is like um it's like this red Eldritch Lightning, and her whole thing had been like she's a warlock of I mean, this is not really a known part of it's in the Forgotten Realms lore.
Hmm?
Anyway, like somebody who is like really into Nine Hells stuff might know this, but I think the general D&D player doesn't. But obviously, like the king of the Nine Hells, Asmodeus, everyone people know that.
Yeah.
But in the lore, he has like a daughter who's kind of like the princess of the Nine Hells, and she is Vera's patron. Because I wanted to find a character that I wanted to find a character in the lore that like wasn't really used all the time. So it could give me some freedom to like experiment with the dynamic, like the character dynamic between Vera and her patron. Um, so yeah, so her obviously very eldritch, nine hells, whatever. But she's also multi-classed into a cleric of the Morning Lord. So it's like these two very like opposite things, you know, like patron from the Nine Hells, cleric, god of this, like, you know, whatever. Thematically, they were opposite.
Mhm.
And so there have been like a few moments where, like, thematically, maybe Vera has been putting more into the cleric stuff or more into the warlock stuff, where her Eldritch Blast looks different. Like, it changes. We had this big fight against this big dragon that was like off to destroy like all of 10 towns, like all of the towns in 10 towns in Icewind Dale. Um, and we managed to save most of them, but only 2 of them got completely eviscerated. Not completely eviscerated, but attacked.
Ah,
Um, but the killing blow of that was a Eldritch Blast. And the way I described it was like a double helix of blue energy and like red energy. And I could have done like a yellow, like, you know, morning light, sunlight, whatever, but I felt like blue and red kind of was cooler.
they do contrast very
um,
well, I will say.
yeah, so it's like this like double helix, you know, DNA kind of structure, um, straight towards this dragon. That was the killing blow, and it was really cool. And so for that reason, I really like flavoring Eldritch Blast like that. I think it's really cool and really fun, and you can change it, and it's fun.
The thing that I like to homebrew for my warlocks a lot of the time is different ways that they get their packs. Like some people are like, oh, you know, it's that demon that rose up from the ground, and I signed a deal with him. I think one of my favorite character concepts that I made was a fighter warlock, and I think you know exactly what I'm about to say. Perix.
Mm,
That is my
I forgot that part was a win.
favorite character that I got to play for like one session. I loved him so much because he had his Southern Belle type voice, and he was very what's the word? Very nice and kind of sweet and all. And I'm butchering the Southern accent, but
You
it's
know.
what it is, huh? Oh, God bless your heart. I meant that in the good way, I swear. Alright, but that was my favorite character. He was very like himbo, like stupid, not like illiterate stupid, but like doesn't pick up on social cues well stupid. Like very like right over his head. A lot of stuff was just, you know, like how do I explain it? Because you know the type of character he was too. We like again made our characters
To be
together.
honest, I remember more about what we talked about, less about what you actually played because it was only one session. So
It's
I
true. Um, the best way I would describe it is he was a golden retriever with armor.
mm,
Like he was very like,
yeah,
oh, do you want to be my friend? Like the
like skilled in fighting, but not super skilled socially.
no, definitely not. Like skilled in fighting, but like I think my favorite moment from that one shot with Perix was probably when he like turned to you in that like spinning blades of death part, and he
Oh
just
yeah, I
went,
remember this.
"Take care of yourself, Vera." Or no, not Vera. It was
Medea.
Medea. And he used one of his spells to cast gaseous form on you so you wouldn't get hurt by the blades. And I was like,
So
well,
I love
he's
that.
gonna
I
die.
love that. I love that in theory, but in concept, I like the
Yeah,
thing with
no.
that is like you can't do that because then it's
I
like,
was ready to
well, I
like
can't
take it
do
back too because it's
anything.
a concentration spell. I could have just dropped concentration on it immediately if
Well,
you
it's just also
wanted.
one of those things where it's like it made sense, but I couldn't actually do anything. Like we ended up finding a way to do something with it, but like
Mm,
when you did that, I was like, I love this thematically, but what am I supposed to do now? Like I can't guess really cast any spells at all. So it's like, um, stuff like that is really cool, but I feel like you gotta clear it
it's true.
before you do that because it's like, guidance and bardic inspiration, like those are only good things, but sometimes with something like that is like, oh, I
It's
can't actually
very,
do anything
yeah,
about
no.
this.
Very much puts you in an odd situation. So I will say, thematically, it's good. It's just, again, gaseous form should allow your person to cast spells still, in my opinion.
But then if you're using it against like a villain, then there's not really a point because they can still do all their things. You just can't hit them anymore. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. It's very true. But that also gives cadence to, making it like, oh, Gust of Wind is now more effective. Kind of
Mm,
giving more creativity to other spells.
I can see that. I feel like you'd have to.
You'd have to
Mm,
definitely work it a certain way, but I feel like certain spells like that, you can give that benefit, but you have to give enough of a trade off. But what was I saying before I forget my point about Perix? Basically, Perix was a warlock that didn't really think he was going to be a warlock or wanted to be a warlock. And I'm not saying like he got trapped in a deal. The whole backstory was he was a kid that grew up fighting with a polearm, like dreaming to go adventuring, and his mentor would always give him a singular gold coin. And he would always save each gold coin and, spend it on food or spend it on whatever he could. He wasn't a superstitious guy, and he wasn't like, oh, I don't believe in the gods, that's stupid. He was more, well, I'm gonna be working by my own luck. I don't need to wish for nothing. I'm happy now.
mhm.
And the day his mentor died, he gave him 2 coins. 2 coins. And what Perix did, because his mentor's dying wish was for him to sort of use one of the coins on himself. First coin, he used for his mentor's sort of passing, and he said that he wished for his mentor to pass on safely into the afterlife. And the second coin, he wished to gain strength enough so he could go out adventuring and make his mentor proud. And he tossed it into the well, and somehow some like water came out of the well, like flowed up his arm, and he became a fathomless warlock, Pact of the
Mm.
Blade. So, again, I flavored it as like he doesn't really know what's going on with it. He's just a dude with a pole arm that just forms out of water, and I liked that. I thought it was interesting. So, and I made him very like no starting gear, because I gave him
Mm.
what was it, Armor of Shadows, which I reflavored as like water just coming like from a flask and just taking the form of armor, like solidifying.
Mm.
And then he had Pact of the Blade, which you can just form whatever weapon you want into your hand. So technically, he could be completely unarmed at any point and just done.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
It's
is,
really it's cool. It's awesome.
and not using spell slots. So like, it was a little busted in my opinion. Maybe not
No,
busted, but it
I
was
mean, I don't think that's busted. I think that's just
situationally could
using
be
the
very useful.
yeah. No, yeah, that's I find that I really like warlocks for that reason
I do
because
like that.
you can really flavor them in a lot of really cool ways. I think we talked about this on the first one of these, but my qualm with like wizards, and it depends on the character, right? Like this isn't
Mm,
always true. My qualm with wizards sometimes is like I feel like wizard or like magic in D&D, like as a concept, um, is so big. Like it depends on the setting, but like it's everywhere. It's like it's so especially in somewhere like the Feywild, right? Like it's so big as a concept, um, and I find it more I find it more satisfying to play a character that is reverent to magic as opposed to like seeking to gain it.
and
You
control
know,
their will over it. Yeah, I actually agree with
yeah.
that.
And so like sorcerer stuff, right, where it's like bloodline. Obviously, you can run into a lot of issues with bloodline related stuff. But even that is like your character. It is like given. It's not taken by a
Right.
character. Um, and like same with warlocks. It's like even though it's still the character like making the pact to get the magic, it's still being given to them. I really like the idea of
Receiving
the
it
idea
by like
receiving
will
magic,
of the
but
world.
also yeah, I like the idea of the way that somebody might be reverent to a god being reverent to a concept of magic.
I agree with that.
Um, it's just a cool thing to play around with, and there's so many like beings that you can go with packs,
Mm.
and there's so much lore, and also you can just make shit up about those characters
I'm
in
gonna
your
pull a
game because
Brennan
it's
Lee
your game.
Mulligan and
Who
just
cares?
completely take the other side, just so we can have
Okay.
like a little devil's advocate here. But I actually love the idea of a wizard or any magic user that studies and like works their butt off and like just really like trains and like thinks and experiments. It's less about like, oh, I'm gaining mastery, and more about I'm working hard through my own hard work and determination. I was able to do this. I wasn't gifted
Yeah.
it, it wasn't handed to me. I'm a self made magic user. I worked my ass
That's
off and now I
Hey,
deserve
that's
it.
so fair.
And I'm
Yeah,
not
no, that's so
saying
fair.
sorcerers don't deserve it, but it's sort of the other end. But also at the same time, if you're using XP leveling, as Brennan Lee Mulligan said, you're going to show up to the first day of Wizard Academy if you're doing exclusively XP, and you're just going to have the headmaster go, okay, well, it's time to go kill some fucking goblins. What? What? Well, you gotta kill people. People gotta die. That's how you get good at
Mm.
magic, son. What, books? Books are for nerds. You know? And I don't like that. The way I like people that play wizards, and that is actually one of the, I want to say, he didn't play a wizard, but he played a guy who was very smart with magic. And I like creative players, if that makes sense. You know, I like the way you play. I
What do
like
you
the
mean
way
if that makes
Alpert
sense? That's
plays.
like a pretty.
See, there was a guy I had who broke my game every time. I haven't played with him or even talked to him in a while, not because we did have a falling out at one point, but totally beyond the story. Great dude. I actually passed by a few of the Fleeing Sparrows things to him originally. Like, passed a few things mechanically to him, and he was like, okay, this. Because he's a mechanics wizard. He knows what he's doing. And because of that, he came up with some really creative combinations, and it was always something different every session. And I'm not saying, like, oh, he took a new spell. He used what he had creatively every single time, and while it would absolutely completely break the game, it was just so much fun seeing the gears and cogs turn in his head. And, like, you know, he would be able to, like, do some really crazy stuff with his resources on hand.
Sure.
That's the kind of wizard, if I was to play one, that's the kind of wizard I would want to be. I wouldn't just want to be fireball every 2 seconds. I would probably, you know, do something a bit more niche. I would maybe use, like, grease on the floor to, like, kind of give a circle. And then maybe I'd use fire bolt on the grease, you know, kind of keep them in a ring of fire with the barbarian. And then instead of fireballing them every 2 seconds, I would just shoot small cantrips at them and play support. Because I hate to say it, and this is gonna, I know nobody really does this, but there are players that would do it. I cast Fireball. The whole party is in your radius. Oh, they'll be fine. What? Fuck you.
It's like,
Fuck
no,
you and everything you stand
actually,
for.
that's
As a
not
marshal,
true.
fuck you. I'm up against the, like, big dude in the middle trying to, like, slug it out with him, and then I get blown up? Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, I'm trying here. Like, the least you could do is, like, I don't know, maybe be a bit more careful, maybe put the radius outside of range. No, then I won't hit as many of them. You won't kill the whole party either.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cliches, but I'm sure people definitely would
Oh, it
do it.
absolutely is.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm such an angst character. Like, I know you have like these different kinds of players, right? Like players that just like are there to have a good time, which obviously is everyone. Like everyone wants to have fun, but it's like, you know, the funny, you know, comedic character kind of thing. And then you have like players that are really into combat and like min-maxing, and they really only care about
Seeing the big
efficiency.
numbers.
I am, and then even within like role play focused characters, or players, you have like a lot of these different, you know, like person who's going for like fluffy, happy romance, nice, happy sunshine. And then you have characters that are going for angst and edge. I find that I'm kind of in the middle, where I'm like, I love a good happy moment, right? But what I love more than that is melancholy. Is like melancholy moments and like really sad, not edgy as in like dark and death and like, even though death is like usually involved, like angst. Do you know what I mean? Like angst, but
Basically,
not in
like,
like angst,
drama,
but not in like
but
a
not in the edgy sense. Yes, I understand. And you've had a
yes.
lot of those moments in the campaign, which
And I love it,
you've
and I
definitely
appreciate you so much
provided
for giving me
naturally.
those moments.
I love when you play off of those too, because you really, you dig in, and you, normally people will be like, oh, that's sad, and move on. No, you dig your heels in, and you take that bull square by the horns and drive its head into the ground.
Yeah, I'm
Perfect
like,
time.
let me make everyone sad.
Exactly. And you know what? Oh my god, it is stellar. But since we're on the topic of players, and I always love to give like little shout outs and little like brownie points. I almost said bonus points. Brownie
That
points
could
to
also make
players.
sense.
Yeah. you mentioned joke characters, and I'm not saying a joke character, but I am saying comedic relief.
Yeah.
I don't love joke characters, as weird as it sounds. I don't like Blimbo the Glimbo, the stinky, winky goblin. Sometimes in the wrong scenario, those bother me. But I do like characters that have comedic relief to them, that can, like, take a joke. The
Yeah.
two best examples I can use are both players that you've played with. The two
Mm.
best joke characters, or not joke characters, but comedic reliefs I've had were Mintel Rosabo and Rafael Marquez.
Mm.
Because Rafael can
Raphael's
have
a
his
joke
serious...
character?
He's not a joke character. He's a serious character, but he is comedic relief, in
Oh,
my
sorry.
opinion.
I realized
No.
you just completely you you
No.
completely like prefaced that with with not joke characters. Got it.
This is where Mel gets tired and I just start talking to myself.
Mel does get tired and
Mel
also
does
is
get very
in
tired.
pain.
Alright. But basically Raphael has a lot of moments in the campaign where, like, he just I know I can do this to Adrian because he riffs off of it in such a funny way. There's times on the stream where, like, you'll see me, like, go like this. It's because I'm rolling. I can't contain my laughter. Like, anytime he, like, rolls a nat 1 on, like, a stealth check or something, rather than, like, have him immediately be found, it's more along the lines of, like, you step on a floorboard and it comes up and hits you between the eyes. And just... And I just love when he just...
Also, yeah, he also really plays into it.
He
Like
does, and it's amazing.
he will play a nat 1. Like, I know some people hate rolling nat 1s because they're like, oh, like, this sucks. And depending on the situation, yeah, it sucks. But he is very good at taking it as it comes.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he will really, like you said, like how I kind of dig my heels into the angst. He will dig his heels into the failures, which is awesome.
I love it. You
Because
need a character that's good at
so
failing.
You do. I mean, in life, you need to be good at failing because 90% of the time, people are failing. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. And it's important to be able to, take that as it comes.
I will say, like, all three of you remind me of, like, different genres of movies that I like watching. You are very much more of, like, dare I say it, like, a serious, like, very, not edgy, but I want to say, like, a serious type of movie with, like, very serious undertones.
Like melodramatic and...
Yes, in a certain way. Best examples I can give are, like, war movies, if that makes sense. Like, you can have very comedic moments, but a lot of the time there's a serious and very melancholic undertone to the character. The vibe that Alcoy gives off is more along the lines of, I want to say the Ip Man movies.
I don't know those.
Ip Man is, in my opinion, at least in his attitudes, a very static character a lot of the time, which is very fine and very good if you play it off right. He's very strong in his conviction, he doesn't really waver, and from the beginning of the movie, he's wise as anything. And honestly, even his fighting doesn't change. He doesn't need to train, he doesn't need to get much better. I think the interesting part of those movies are sort of just the fights and just seeing how he handles what is thrown at him. And they always bring, like, a stronger guy, a guy that can punch through walls, and, like, it's always interesting because you're like, okay, is he gonna beat this one? And then when you go, oh, he is gonna beat this one, it's like, oh, so, like, you get to see it in real time. It's very Alcoy because you expect him to beat him, but there's that little voice in your mind that's going, is it gonna happen? I don't know. And Adrian's characters remind me a lot of 80s action movies, as weird as it sounds.
Yeah, sort of campy, sort of like comedic and everything that you're doing.
Oh yeah, he's very... I want to say the best example I can give of an action hero that gives off the same, like, I can take the hits and I can take the jokes. Jackie Chan, immediately. Like, honestly, like, Jackie Chan, some of the best fight scenes I've ever seen as a guy who watches these types of movies. Oh my god. I love it.
Mhm.
I love the creativity. I love the way he interacts with like everything in the scene. I love his pacing, his tempo, his facial expressions. Everything is down to a science with that man. Like, look up any video about him, any like sort of fight scene breakdown or like how he does it, and it'll tell you every little thing is planned from
Mhm.
all the way up to his hair. And this is the interesting part about that, about little details. Hair shows kinetic motion, right? Anytime he gets punched, you see his hair fling back.
Mhm.
So it really shows that, like, oh, he got hit. His head snaps back. You know,
Mhm.
he'll show it on his face. Like, you see all these really tough guy, like, macho man heroes that are, like, you know, taking on punches and just bam, bam, bam. Like, just straight face. He gets punched in the nose. He's, oh, bam, bam. He's still fighting. He's still good, but
Mhm.
he's taking the hits, and it shows. And I really like the way that Adrian does it, where he's like, okay, I'm getting hit. I'm gonna react like a human being would. I'm not gonna sit there and get slashed across the chest and be like, what, this? 'Tis but a scratch.
Well, yeah, and I think it's really easy to fall into that trap with D&D sometimes because obviously like with hit points and the way the hit points work, sometimes you like yeah, you can get like I found that sometimes playing with other people who are super um mechanicsy and like rules lawyery. Um Let me finish what I'm saying. Um Rules lawyery where it's like it's a big thing to me to like be able to describe combat stuff in terms of like where I'm aiming for because it's like you can people will be like well you can't say where you're aiming because then it's very easy to abuse for some people where they're like oh and I'm gonna slit his throat and I've been definitely someone who's done that before
Mm.
but I've stopped doing that because I've realized because of the way combat works in games like this like that's not really as impactful unless it's a final blow. It's not really impactful to say, "Oh, I'm going to go to make this really intense hit." Because
Yes and no.
well, let me finish what I'm saying. Um, it's not super impactful to go for that because it's not going to kill them. Like you wanna sometimes when describing these like oh go for the throat go straight for the heart go for the head like things like that I feel like a lot of people will say like I'm doing that and it's supposed to have impact because those are the really important places on the body that really would do a lot of damage but if it's the beginning of a fight they're only down maybe 10 hit points and they're still up so like the impact of it isn't really there in my
Mm.
opinion at least with spells I find the impact is not really there um so, why did I start saying this? Um, I don't remember why I started saying this now. Damn it. Where was I? What did you?
Something about how Adrian plays off very well with the, he rolls with the punches type thing.
No, it was about how combat. Oh God.
Ah, so,
The point was with the way that combat works in these. Oh, I remember. It's important for me to be able to describe like cool, like this is where it hits them, this is where it hits them. And I've encountered players who are like, well, you can't say where it hit them. Like you don't get to do that. And it's like, well, no, I do because it's part of the flavor of the thing. Um, and it's really important in moments like those for me to be able to describe specifics when it comes
mm.
to combat because like that's where the power comes from. That's where the momentum comes from. That's like, you
See,
know.
I like it. What I have is variable DCs. So basically, I ask you where you're trying to hit the character,
Hmm.
and based on your degree of success, like let's say the armor class is 16, and you say you want to go for the throat. Okay, so you're aiming for the throat. You roll a 17. I have the throat at a much higher threshold, so you can hit them, but you're not gonna hit the throat. It's like
Yeah.
it's the way I do what's it called? Checks, if that makes sense. Like insight is the best example I can give. I always ask you guys, what are you looking to find out? Because I don't need to just lore dump on a nat 20 if you're not gonna ask for it. If you're trying to figure out like what his intention is, I don't need to tell you what he had for breakfast that morning, you know? And
Hmm.
it's one of those things where it's a hard thing to balance because someone goes, oh, I want to go for his neck. No, you're not getting, like, you can nick his neck, but you're not going to cut clean through no matter how high you get at the beginning. You know, you're not beheading him. However, if you're going to aim for his hand, he's going to loosen his grip. I'll give you something for that. You know, he'll have disadvantage on his next attack. You know, something like that. Or, I want to aim for his heart. Well, the armor is very tough there. You can get a little bit through, but you're not getting all the way through on the first strike. And if you're trying to get all the way through, you're going to have to push for a few rounds. So I will give it to
Well,
you,
yeah,
but you're going to have to
that's what
work
I
for it.
mean. Yeah, because it's like if you're at the beginning of the game, beginning of the battle, and you're saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna aim for the heart,"
I agree.
even if you do hit, the dude's not going down. You haven't.
No.
That's
But
just the
it's
way
less...
that combat works with like your hit points. Is like the dude's not going down first round just because you aim for the heart.
No.
So in my experience, it's like better to just save those kind of things for the end.
No, absolutely. But that's the
Because then
other
the impact
thing.
is there.
It's, if you want to do that at the beginning of the round, the way I would do it is his armor is tough. You have to, like, you stab, you get a little bit in, you get that little inch so you can keep pushing, and you're just gonna have to spend a bunch of your turns pushing further in if you want to get more damage. You know,
Yeah,
you'll roll
and
a
so at
hit
that point, it's
advantage,
like,
you'll get that, but you're using all your attacks to kind of just eke it in further. And you know what?
yeah, it's like,
It might work out better for you, but you're also standing there. You're down a weapon. You're down two hands if you're using two-handed. You're down one hand if you're using one-handed. And you're using full actions or even
and
full
you're right
turns to
in
just...
combat range.
Exactly, so he can hit you too. He can sit there and he
Yeah.
can shove you off of him. And then what I have you do is what I have everyone do when their weapon is stuck in their opponent and they get shoved off. I have them roll a strength save or a dexterity save to see if they hold on to their weapon. And if they don't, they don't. But that also, in my opinion, punishes hubris. Because you
Oh
can
yeah.
go for my throat the first round, you can do it. But if you don't get all the way through, buckle in.
Mm.
And it's gonna be one of those moments that's just like, and you stop right there and it's, you get shoved off, you have no sword, you just got screwed. I'm gonna try and grab it out of him. Well, go for it. You know, that just puts you in his range again to do the same thing. He can keep shoving you. He can punch you and shove you. You know, because I think shoving is an attack action, not just a full action. I gotta read up on that one because I don't shove enough.
Yeah, I don't know.
Overall, I think we've had a lot of good points. It's getting a little late, so I think it might be time to cut it. But is there anything closing that you would like to make a remark of? Kind of end us off.
Oh, I don't know. I think a cool topic for another one of these would be like character creation process. So maybe that could be like the next thing that we do.
That would definitely be a good one to do.
But as for like this conversation, I can't really think of anything.
I think it was very magic focused, which I enjoy because I don't talk enough about magic. But the true magic of D&D is getting to slaughter fucking goblins.
It was the friends you made along the way.
No, it was the goblin killing. Don't listen to her. Listen to the little voice in your head that says explode Glimbo the goblin. Alright, goodbye everybody. Peace.